right, you guys, it's episode 93 of Inner Demons. And like always, I'm going to get straight to it. And I do mean in the literal sense. I'm going to get straight to it. So check it out, you guys. Episode 92 of Inner Demons. You know, I talked about the Palmas trial. I talked about a lot of the things that I personally went through in that trial. I talked about some of the things my co-defendants went through. There's a lot of different areas that I touched on. And, you know, when I watched that episode back, you know, I couldn't help but to notice that there was a lot of things that I didn't touch on, that I intended on delving off into, but I didn't cover those things. So this episode right here is going to be a little bit different from any of the other Inner Demons. This is not a response video. It's not a Q&A type of video or nothing like that. I'm simply gonna, you know, continue to talk about some of the Palmas things that happened that I missed, as well as, you know, cover some of the commentary that, you know, some of you addressed in the comments. Now, let me just say this. I read all the comments, and for the most part, most of you are intelligent adults. You guys get it. Most of you are grown, and you're at a point in life where, you know, you see things through a different lens. And those of you that are like that, I appreciate you guys. You know, even when you guys address topics that are difficult to address, they're undesirable things to talk about, but yet you still continue to give me a positive push, and you're not too critical. You know, there's a lot of people that jump in the comments, and I think it's for their own personal interest, because they feel the need to, you know, prove themselves to somebody else. Why they even waste 30 seconds or a minute of their life typing the things that they do, I don't know. It's pointless, because, you know, even though I read a lot of that stuff, the bullshit, I let it roll right off me. There's no purpose for it. It doesn't serve nothing. You know, if there's something I can get out of reading somebody's comment, even if it's, you know, borderline, if they're critiquing, constructive criticism, I'm all for it. That's what makes me stronger. It helps me understand what people think about me, what people think about, you know, the struggles and the things that I've went through. So I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the constructive criticism. But these guys that jump in the comments and do nothing more than just, you know, grandstand and use it as an opportunity to throw cheap shots and talk shit and talk about how they're 10 toes down, they're solid, and how could anybody do this or that, and yada, 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 yada. All that stuff, it ain't nobody paying attention to it. It's irrelevant. You know, I learned long ago, years ago, at one point in time, it really mattered to me what people thought about me. I got hung up on it so much that it took me 5 years before I was able to make an intelligent decision. Not a desirable one that I would ever hope that I would never have to be put in a situation like that again, but a wise decision nonetheless, because I was caught up on what people thought about me, how people perceive me. You know, I finally have gotten to a point in life where I just don't give up. I don't care what people think. I really don't. And again, those of you that understand how the world turns and understand just the dynamics of life, you guys get it. You know, I'm sure you agree that at some point you're like, you don't care what other people think, because it really is irrelevant. So what? These individuals are not in my shoes. They haven't been, you know, through what I've been through. They haven't experienced my plight. So why am I even gonna let somebody, a faceless individual that spends their time on YouTube, why am I gonna allow somebody like that to even get in my head or to even mess with my thoughts? I don't care. I really don't. Again, you know, the intelligent people, man, I appreciate you guys. I really do, wholeheartedly, because in a lot of ways it really does help me. It's therapeutic in a lot of ways. And as I'm trying to educate, I'm also being educated by you guys as well. You know, and let me say this, man, you know, I don't respond to a lot of the negativity. A lot of it, I don't give it the time of day. But I'm gonna say this because, you know, I want people to really understand this and be clear about it, because there seems to be people that are either confused or they just don't understand the real purpose of why I'm even doing Inner Demons. People seem to think that, you know, I do these Inner Demons episodes because I'm trying to justify what I did, or because I'm trying to, I'm trying to pretty it up and make it seem like it was something else, or, that I'm trying to earn points with the fellas, or I don't know. I don't understand, some of the things that comes out of these comments. I don't understand what they're thinking or why they even say the things that they do. But let me make this very clear. Make no mistake about it. Inner Demons is not, I'm not doing this. This is not predicated on me trying to convince anybody that, that I didn't do anything that I had to do, that, I'm not trying to justify it. I'm not trying to clean it up. And I'm not trying to change people's perceptions of me. People are going to look at me no matter, they're going to look at me and they're going to have a perception, or they're going to look at me and see me for what they see me as, no matter what I say. That's not going to change. So that's not why I'm doing what I'm doing. And nobody's trying to, win anybody's approval. Nobody's trying to change anybody's perception. And I'm not using this as a sounding board to try to justify what I did. Trust me, I understand it. I wrote a book. I talk about it all the time. So what's your point? I'm not trying to justify the things that I went through. I can't call it something else. It is what it is. I can't unring that bell. I do these Inner Demons episodes because, for one, again, this is all about letting people know, about the experiences that I went through. The good, the bad, the ugly. A lot of this stuff, it's not easy for me to talk about. It's not, and that's because I do feel some type of way about some of the things that I had to go through. Maybe I'm one of the only ones that feels this way. Maybe I'm one of the only ones that can stand up here in front of you guys and tell you guys, hey, you know what? Yeah, I live with this regret. It's something that bothers me. Why? Because that should tell you guys something. That should tell you that my beliefs, they meant something to me. So, the next man, maybe he can continue to push on and not even look back, or not even have, any kind of second thoughts about anything that he had to go through in his life, because it just doesn't matter. People can turn that light switch on and off, that fast. I can't do that. And, that's not to say that, I'm running around with a bottle of hard liquor in my hand and I can't look at myself in the mirror and I'm all jacked up and, I can't go on and this is a big pity party and I'm looking for sympathy. That's not what this is about. And that's not what I do. I had to, when I was going through my trials and tribulations, when I was in the Santa Clara County Jail, I had to really, for once in my life, I really had to reach deep down and ask myself some hard questions. And I had to really be honest with myself. I was making life-altering decisions. I was put in a situation where I had to make some choices that were going to be life-affecting, and they were going to affect me for the rest of my life, no matter what. Either I was going to stay in a prison cell in a concrete box forever, and I was going to basically have to come to terms with the fact that this world out here doesn't exist no more. That was going to be what my world was going to consist of: concrete, steel, living in a small box by myself and just, living life in prison. Or, I was going to have to compromise some of my beliefs and, maybe turn that situation into something positive and possibly get back out and hopefully have a chance to live life, on a different path. And I was faced with those choices, and I had to make a choice that was, better for me, that was best for me. For once, I had to take my best interests into account instead of putting the organization before me. I played that game for years. I played that game for almost 30 years. And where did it get me? It didn't get me nowhere. We always talk about, not just myself, take myself out of the equation. We're always talking about how a lot of guys failed the organization, how they failed to live up to these expectations, how they failed to do this or they failed to do that, or it got too hot and, they jumped ship and they got weak and all this and all that. You hear a lot about all that all the time. You hear, people always talking about that. But what you don't hear is, well, what about the organization when the organization fails? Those of us that have shown that loyalty, have really shown that unfettered, that unconditional loyalty, and then we don't get that loyalty, we don't get that same loyalty back. What about that? Nobody talks about that. It's always about how guys drop out because they couldn't cope with their expectations. They couldn't live up to that commitment. But what about how the organization fails some of us that have lived that life, that have sacrificed, that have given up real sacrifices? Guys that have given up their kids. I gave my kids up. I gave up a lot of relationships. I sabotaged a lot of relationships behind my commitment. I gave up a lot of years of my life. I spent a lot of years in prison, not because I wanted to stay in prison, but because I was running for the organization. But and this is not a pity party. This is not a pity party. I'm making one of several points. When I got cracked on this case right here, obviously I knew it was a life case. I knew that, I was in a lot of trouble, and this was basically it right here. I was either going to shine and, I was going to stand firm in my beliefs, and no matter what happened, I was going to weather that storm and stay true to my commitment, or I was going to get weak and allow, a lot of that adversity to just, cave in, make me cave in. Those were the two choices I knew I was faced with when I caught this case. And my mindset was always like, you know what, I'm going to stand firm in my beliefs. You guys, a lot of you guys that jump in the comments, you say that, I couldn't take it or that I got weak. I didn't check out. The organization checked out on me because of phone calls that were taken out of context. I didn't throw up, throw my flag in and say, you know what, I'm done. I'm cool. I don't want to function no more. I'll be the first one to tell you, I couldn't do that. I didn't have the DNA to do it. I didn't know how to do something like that. I'm not the type of dude that would be able to walk off a tear. I couldn't take that walk of shame like that. These dudes pulled the trigger for me. Then I was forced into a situation where I had to make a wise decision based on the circumstances. But my point is this, and again, no pity party. I'm not looking for no sympathy. That shit's in the history books. This is done already. But let me make this point. When I got cracked on this case, something that was a real morale killer and a morale booster was the fact that I was promised an attorney. When I got, hit with the 3 strikes and I knew it was a serious case, and that, I seen how these cops were playing, how they were painting me out in these police reports, I was like, oh man, there's no way I'm coming up from up under this. And this is Santa Clara County. It's a wrap. It's a done deal. Might as well stick a fork in myself. I knew I was in a lot of trouble, and basically at that point, all I could really do was just kick my feet up, go for the ride, and whatever was going to happen was going to happen. But at some point, after I hit that county jail, I want to say it was within the first 3 weeks when I got, when I got aligned to Pony and, we were able to communicate. He told me, Corny and the brothers, they want you to know that they got an attorney coming to you, bro. I can't explain how what that did to my morale. My morale shot through the fucking roof. It felt good to know that my brothers had my back. I was like, you know what? At that point, when I heard that, I was like, I don't give a fuck what happens. That just the fact that I was being embraced like that, the fact that, the organization reached out and said, we got your back. We're here for you, bro. We got an attorney coming to you. It really gave me a boost of morale that I can't even put it in words. But it reinforced, my beliefs and the, everything that I was feeling at that point. And this was during the first 3 weeks. So you guys can understand that at that point, I was still kind of, going through the withdrawals and just a lot was happening during that time. But I don't know what was, what had more of an effect, either when I was told that I had an attorney coming and the boost of morale I felt then, or the point where I realized that there was no attorney coming and that I wasn't going to get no help. I don't know what had more of an impact, but both of them had an impact. When I got to the point where I realized that an attorney wasn't coming and that I wasn't going to be given no assistance, it killed my morale. What do you guys think it did for my morale? I remember back in the early 90s when I first started functioning in these street regiments, and make no mistake about it, every time I hit the bricks, I hit them running in full stride. I got out and I functioned in these regiments, and my whole purpose was to generate money for this organization, not putting money in my pockets, but putting money in the organization's pockets. But, my whole purpose was to generate money because I believed in what the cause was about. I believed in, what the purpose was while we were generating money for the less fortunate brothers that were no longer in a position to, care for themselves, that didn't have personal resources no more. So I believed in that whole concept is what I'm trying to tell you guys. And, there was only one time that I got out that I didn't function in a regiment. And I told you guys about that. That's when I got out and, I was going through the personal issue I had with Duck and Marlene and all that stuff. But every time after that, it was all about getting out and functioning. That's all I ever did. That's all I thought about. That's what my life consisted of. Some people talk about what they used to do. And I actually used to live this life. For those of you that don't understand that, this is all I used to do. So what I'm trying to say is, back in the early 90s, I know I'm kind of getting off track because I feel strong about this shit, man. But, back in the early 90s, the street protocols and the street, activities, what they used to call it, the protocols, the policies, the format, everything was geared more, well, not everything, but a lot of it was geared towards, helping those brothers or assisting those brothers that were out there making these sacrifices. If you got caught up, you had an attorney coming. They actually, there was actually language in the street activities that used to say, regimental commanders, or at that time, padrinos, or whatever we were called back in those days, because I've been through them all. But the point I'm trying to make is, at one point in time, there used to be language in the street protocols and the activities that were written, obviously, because these guys that drafted up this, these policies were thinking about these guys that might end up getting caught up, the ones that are making sacrifices, if they get caught, they should have an attorney coming. If they get, hemmed up, there should be a fund put aside to assist these individuals. It used to be about that because, leadership used to care about that. And they used to care about guys that were making these sacrifices. It's not as simple as just, hey, this guy's out there running for the organization because he has to, and he ended up picking up a life case, and it is what it is. It's not that simple. The organization is also, it should be invested in its manpower as well. And it should follow through with the things that, it's expected to follow through with as well, meaning, an attorney, legal assistance for somebody that's out there running for the organization. How can you not look out for your people that are, catching life cases or catching a third strike, and they're out there, they're not selling dope or, trying to generate this money for themselves. They're doing it for the organization. But it's not about that no more. Nobody talks about, getting somebody, an attorney that gets caught up. Nobody's thinking about what to do, in situations like that where people's families end up in bad situations. Those of us that are out there that were out there on the streets running, and whether you were a regimental commander or just a regular, regiment member, there was a lot of individuals over the years that I seen that ended up getting caught up, and they basically got fed to the wolves. Once they got caught, that was it. It's like they were written off, and they ended up just becoming another number in prison, another norteño that picked up a life case, and nobody seemed to care. Nobody addressed what happened to these guys. A lot of the times, those of us that were out there were running for the organization, and at the same time we're trying to take care of our families. When we get hemmed up, I've seen it happen a lot over the years. Like Smokey from Salinas is a prime example. He gets hemmed up. He's out there. He's running. He's doing everything he can for the O. When he falls, his family, gets put in a bad situation. He's got a whole baseball team of kids. He had like 6, 7 kids. He's got his wife. He's got a house. They're all dependent on Smokey. But because he ends up catching a case, they end up putting the house in foreclosure. His wife ended up on the streets with all her kids, and the organization did nothing to help him. He wasn't in bad standings. He didn't do nothing, to deserve that. He continued to honor his commitment all the way up until he got to Corcoran. And then at some point, that's when he dropped out and sent Lencho that bag of apples. I'm glad you did that, boy. If you're watching, I'm still glad you did it. But the point is the organization sat back and watched his family sink. They watched his wife and his kids, basically become homeless, and nothing was done for him or to help his family. And this is just one of many situations that continues to happen all the time. These guys that get caught up, they end up in jail. They got families too. They got kids too. And they're depending on these guys. But when they get caught up, nobody does nothing to help their families. What happened to those days back in the early 90s when families were considered to be our purest reflections? Our wives, our children, our mothers, our fathers, they were considered to be some of the most purest reflections that we had, that we possessed. At that time, it seemed like the C's that were writing up, the policies, the protocols, they, at least at that time, their heart was in the right place, because there was always language, or there was always something in there about helping guys that get caught up respecting wives, girlfriends, kids, all that stuff. But nowadays, you don't hear about none of that. You don't hear about it in the street policies. You don't hear about it, in the regiments. Nobody thinks about sending this guy any money or an attorney when he gets caught up. He's busted. He got caught up, and it is what it is. I've said this before. It's a term that I've often used, and it's a term that I'm going to continue to use. You just become another liability, another hungry mouth to feed. That's basically what happens. I understand it. Nobody likes spending money. Nobody likes having to part ways with money. For the guys at the top that get this money and they get these fat bank accounts, and they have all this, that are the recipients of the monetary gain, the ones that are getting that money. I understand, you're trying to stack your dollars, man. And that, when somebody falls, it's messed up that you have to take 5,000 or 10,000 out of that stack to help this individual. But damn, that's the honorable thing to do. But nobody talks about that. Nobody talks about that. And, that's one of the points that I wanted to make in this episode right here, because that really did have a huge impact on not just my morale, but just my whole, my mental state of being at that time when I was in the Santa Clara County. When I had to realize, after I was promised an attorney and I felt a little bit of carnalismo, that the organization had reached out, but then I had to realize that it wasn't coming. It killed my morale. It killed my morale, the same way in the past when I seen things that were wrong, but I just looked the other way. Back in the 90s, in the early or the mid 90s, and around 94, when I seen that there were, some serious issues within the NR and just the movement in general, it was discouraging. But at the same time, I continued to push on anyway. I had to look at it as like, what? Fuck it. It's not affecting me personally. So I know it's a fucked up thing and I see it, but hey, I'm going to keep pushing. That was my mentality. That was my mindset. But, nobody talks about these things. No, it's always about how we failed the organization, how, we weren't living up to our expectations, or we got weak, or we went out ass backwards. Again, I really don't care what people think about me, but I didn't check out. I didn't say, you know what, I'm done. I can't deal with this anymore. They're offering me too much time. I'm looking, I'm in a bad situation. It's time for me to check out, fellas. You know what I mean? I'm gone. I'm gonna start throwing all you cats under the bus. I'm cool. That couldn't be any more. That it couldn't be any more opposite of that. And that's absolutely what didn't happen. Again, if anything, I was turned on. I was turned on by individuals that were too stupid and too ignorant to open up their minds and see things for what they were, or they just didn't want to give me the benefit of the doubt. If these dumbasses would have just gave me the benefit of the doubt, like I've said a million times already, would have let the case play out, I wouldn't be here talking to you guys right now. I'd be in prison somewhere, probably in federal prison, but I would be in prison, because that's all I ever asked for, was just give me the benefit of the doubt. God damn. So some of you guys need to, before you speak, you guys need to know what you're talking about. And again, I'm going to say it one more time, and then I'm going to move on to some of these other issues dealing with the Palmas case. I'm not trying to justify anything I did. I understand fully, and completely of what I did, what I had to go through, the dishonorable things that I did, not only, to myself, but just as a, as an NF member, as a man, in my own individual beliefs. I get that. So I don't need nobody to, to try to tell me to, to come to terms with it and just admit it. I've already done that. You guys are just too stupid to understand that. But I'll just say this, those of you that are in the comments, the ones that are outspoken about how loyal they are and about how they're 10 toes down and, this and that, you guys have exposed yourselves because you guys are the first one. It wouldn't take you guys 5 years to get there. You guys check out as soon as they tell you that you're in trouble and you're going to prison. That's a fact. You guys are the ones that are going to check out and throw as many people under the bus as possible. More than you need to. You're going to give up everything, your own family if you have to, because that's just who you guys are. So you guys are not fooling nobody with all that rah-rah. Anyways, I just wanted to get that out there real quick and to respond to some of the, the comments, those people that seem to think that I'm up here trying to justify, the things, some of the things that I went through. Yeah, there's a lot of things that I regret. Yeah, I live with that regret. I tell you guys that all the time. I've been very upfront and honest about that. But B's gonna be okay. I'm okay. I'm gonna continue to push through, and I'm gonna continue to be solid in my own right, regardless to what people think. Don't get it twisted. I made some decisions that I had to make, and regardless to what people think about that, I'm still the same individual that I was when I was with the organization. I'm just no longer connected like that. But anyways, I at least wanted to clarify those things. And, I wanted to put that in perspective about, people always talking about how we failed the organization, but nobody ever talks about how the organization has failed a lot of us. I mean, just another example I can give you guys, just look at the stuff that, has come out recently. Look at all the stuff that happened in Salinas Valley. Look at all the damage that has been inflicted on, that movement from people at the top of the organization. So miss me with all that, how I failed and how, I didn't live up to my expectations. You guys don't know what you're talking about, but I want to make something else clear, or, at least clarify a few things in the event that some of you misconstrued some of what I said. Now, I told you guys that there was a lot of communication between me and Short. He was the older one. He was kind of like their leader, or he was their leader. And, there were times in throughout the trial that we communicated, whether it was just eye contact or, he was mouthing words to me or like wiping his forehead like, that was bad, boy. It was like, or, hey, thank you, bro. Short Day, when I told you guys that, I wasn't trying to put it in the context of like, he was on board with what was happening or anything like that. I'm sure Short Day felt, he felt some kind of way about it. Let's just be honest. I mean, he's in a bad situation. You got dudes coming in there, and these guys are coming in there for the purpose of just making his situation worse. So I'm not trying to, paint a picture of like, hey, Short Day was in there, we were best friends and I had his blessings or anything like that. That's not what I was saying. All I was really telling you guys is that Short Day understood that I wasn't in there with an axe to grind. And I could have went in there and really did some damage if that's what I intended on doing. But that wasn't my purpose. There's a lot of individuals that get put in those positions, similar situations that I was in, and they give up everything. There's just no stopping them. It's like, a dam busting open. You can't stop them. They'll just give up more and more and more and more. And it's a lot of it is unnecessary. You don't even need to do it. But they just start giving up everything, anything and everything that they can think of. Like, you don't want to come nowhere near this individual right now because he's like giving up his own mom, his own family. So my point is, if I would have really like just really went all out and went through 30 years of dirt that I went through out there on the streets, there would have been a lot of heads that would have rolled. You guys just trust me on that. There was not one individual, not one single individual that came into custody as a result of my information. Nobody. The individuals that got caught up in these cases were caught up. They came to the Santa Clara County Jail because of cases that they caught. You know, everybody that got caught up in the Sammy Ramirez trial, the Charlie Campa trial, Lencho's trial, you know, all these guys that came in, Dancing Bear, and, you know, everybody got caught up in his and Kramer's trial, they all came in for cases that they got caught up on the streets. You know, and then everything happened with me, and you know, I went through the things that I went through. I had to make the choices that I had to make. But I can tell you right now that as a result of the things that I talked about, they didn't go out there and put handcuffs on anybody and bring them into the county jail based off of anything that I talked about. And read between the lines. I'm telling you guys that if I would have just went all out with no filter and just gave up everything that I knew, there would have been a lot of people that would have been in some serious trouble. But I understood the situation I was in. I understood that, you know, I had to be calculating. I had to somewhat try to, you know, control as much of it as I could. And that's what I did. You know, I might not be the sharpest tool in the shed, but I think I'm pretty damn sharp, or I was, at least in that situation, and how I managed it, how I was able to navigate and maneuver in that situation, come out okay without having to really just go all out. That's all I'm going to say. And again, I'm not even saying that to, you know, to earn any points with anybody or to change anybody's perception. I'm just being brutally honest with you guys. That's the last point I'm going to make on this, is there seems to be a lot of you that are confused, like I said, or just don't understand what Inner Demons is really about. This is not me arguing my case. This is not me trying to, you know, justify the things that I went through. This is me telling my story. That's what Inner Demons is about. So if it sounds like that's what I'm doing, I'm just telling the story. I mean, everything already happened. This is years later. So some of you guys need to get a clue and understand what this whole purpose is about. This is just about, you know, opening up people's eyes, letting them know what I went through. The entire story, the good, the bad, the ugly, everything, even the things that I don't want to talk about. It's putting everything in perspective. And then, you know, it's about trying to utilize some of my bad experiences to help people that might still be glorifying that lifestyle, that might still think that there's something attractive about, you know, being a C, or running the streets and, you know, being involved in the type of violence that I was involved in. There might be, you know, some youngster out there somewhere that might be able to take some of this information and use it to their advantage, even if it's just to arm themselves with this information so that maybe they can move better or whatever. However it can help them, I don't care, as long as it helps them. You know, there was a comment that I got the other day that I'm literally I'm gonna take a screenshot of this comment, and I'm gonna have it printed on a canvas, have it blown up and printed on the canvas, and I'm gonna put it up on my wall, because it was a comment from a viewer that said, you know, the gist of it was that I had helped their son, and that they credited me with opening up his eyes, and because of me, inner demons, and the things that I talk about, he was able to get back on track, get in school, and now he's excelling. And that's what it's all about right there. That's what it's all about. If I was to die right now today, I would do it having served my purpose with just that one individual right there. There's been many that I've heard the same thing about, so I know I've helped more than just one individual, but that one right there is the validation. That one right there, to see it in a comment, I'm going to throw it up on my wall. You guys will see it right here somewhere. I'll put it so you guys can see it. Guys, you guys are going to see something like that instead of a picture of me up there, thinking that I'm sexy or something. No, that's not no shot at nobody. I'm just saying, come on, man. If I'm gonna throw something up on my wall or in the background, it's gonna be my team or something that has some kind of message. It's not gonna be me thinking that I'm sexy. You know what I mean? Anyways, seriously, that's what it's all about right there, is helping these youngsters. And again, if I was to die tomorrow, I've already served my purpose. So I'm okay with whatever happens from this point on. But that was one of the best comments that I've got in a long time. And that's not to take away a lot of the, there's a lot of you that drop a lot of good comments. A lot of them are they're real positive, well thought out comments, very, very well articulated. And I appreciate you guys, because again, those are the type of things that are therapeutic to me. As I'm educating some people, some of you are actually educating me, and you're helping me on some level. So, I appreciate all that positivity. And that's what I mean by, when I tell you guys to keep the positive comments coming, that's exactly what I'm talking about right there. Anyways, the last issue that I'm going to go over with you guys that pertains to the Palmas case, is basically just sharing something with you guys, something that I missed, in the last episode 92. And again, nobody's looking for any sympathy. I'm definitely not expecting none. Anybody that had went through anything similar, I'm not sharing this looking for any sympathy for them either, because at the end of the day, it's bad business. It is what it is. And there is no way to pretty it up or to make it look any better. But God forbid you guys ever have to be in a situation, like that, where you have to make a choice about either spending the rest of your life in prison or possibly getting back out and maybe having another chance at living, life on the streets with your family, and get your freedom back. God forbid none of you ever have to be put in a real situation like that. Even the people I don't like or I don't care for, I wouldn't wish it on anybody. It's a messed up situation to be in, trust me. But, just to give you guys an example of just how messed up that situation is from both sides, one of the things that really was difficult for, Turtle, Joe Abeda, for a lot of the guys, including myself, that had to go through that, having to go into, that courtroom for the first time. That in itself obviously was a difficult undertaking. It was something nobody wanted to do, and it just, because of, not just because of the stigmas and everything that is attached to actually doing it, but just from an individual perspective, having to go in there and look at the homies and, sit there while the homies look at you go out ass backwards is just a messed up. It doesn't get any worse than that. And, I'm sure a lot of these guys, Turtle, Joe Beta, what they were caught up on is having to go in there and sit in front of these guys, just like what I just said. And this conversation actually came up when, I was back there with Turtle and Joel Beta when we were in Little Max and we were talking about it. And like I had told him, look, man, you could continue beating yourself up over, what's going to happen. You're going to have to go in there and you're going to have to get up in that box, and you're going to have to hunker down and be strong, or you're going to go in there and you're going to be a mess. Either way, you're going to have to do it. But what they were caught up on is these cats looking at them. How is it going to be when they first walked in? And I even thought about it myself. I thought about, what are these cats going to be doing? They're going to be in there like, are they going to be in there trying to mean mug or trying to, get in my head or if I was going to go in there and I was going to see a lot of that. I didn't care about cats mean mugging. I didn't care about all that because it just, none of that was going to bother me. But, I think I touched a little bit on this in the last episode, but what really mattered to me was, how their families were going to look at me. And some of these homies that weren't part of the politics, weren't part of the, the leadership, that were part of that process or part of that circle that I held accountable for, turning on me or pushing that agenda. I felt bad for those individuals, and I wondered how it was going to be to look at those guys. And like I told Turtle and Joel Beta, man, you know what? When you go in there, obviously your nerves are going to be all over the place, man, but just walk up in there, man. And the first thing that you need to do is just sit there and make eye contact with those dudes. Make eye contact with them, get that shit over with. And from that point on, things should be a little bit easier for you guys to deal with. But everybody was caught up on, on that right there. And again, it's not a good situation to be in. And hopefully you guys will never be put in a position like that. But that's what happens when, you're living this type of lifestyle. That's what could happen. You could be put in a situation like this yourself if you're living this type of lifestyle, or, you're somebody that's active, in the game. If this is what you're doing, just know that these things that I'm talking about right now in Inner Demons are things that are going to become common to you. You're going to be able to relate to some of this stuff later on. I hope you don't. I hope you, at some point you end up, the blinders end up coming off and you see it for what it is yourself, and you dip off on your own terms. You do it in a way where you feel like you did it honorably and you didn't have to go through some of the things that I had to go through, or some of the things that some of these other guys went through. Anyways, again, I knew this episode was going to be a little bit different from other episodes of Inner Demons. I just wanted to touch up on the Palmas stuff, some of the things that I didn't talk about. I wanted to respond to some of the commentary. I'm sure you guys don't mind that are really into Inner Demons, because it's another episode. And sooner or later, Inner Demons is going to come to an end. So, there's going to be episodes like this where, that I might reflect back on things that I missed, or I might do a follow-up episode so that, I can keep this series going on just a little bit longer. Anyways, I just wanted to put out some content for you guys tonight. I put out a story for you guys earlier on death row, dealing with the Bloods and the Crips. It's a good story. I'm going to turn it into a part 1 and part 2. Hopefully I get the part 1 out to you guys tomorrow morning. The only reason we haven't been able to get content out is because YouTube has been flagging our videos. They won't release our videos. They're yellow right now. So I've just been on standby waiting for them to release the videos so we can, put them out for you guys. Last week was a difficult week. I told you guys, we didn't put out that much content. And then when we start, generating content, now YouTube wants to play this game. But we've been down this road before. We've had to deal with it before. YouTube is YouTube. It's something that we'll get through. Eventually, they'll start releasing our videos and we'll get back to where we were releasing content. Just hope you guys, stick around with us and weather the storm with us. We'll get through it. With that being said, this episode 93, again, I know it was different. Hopefully you guys were able to take something away, from this episode. I'll be back with episode 94. I got some other good stories coming out to you guys this week. We're going to continue working, doing what we do. Thank you guys for tapping in. Thank you guys for the comments. Keep them coming. Thank you for the positivity. This your boy B, and I'm out.